Every day in our lives, we come into contact with several pathogens. We come into contact with infectious agents that could lead to severe diseases in our body, but yet we are not sick. The reason is simple. It is because our body is having the immune system that defends and protects the body against these pathogens, against these infectious agents. You are highly welcome to this immunology class. My name is Ben Jotone. I'm a senior health laboratory technologist, awareness coach. In this class, we are going to be looking at the complement system. When I'm talking about the complement system, I'm talking about the system of complement proteins. These proteins are being secreted by the liver and they are freely living in the circulation. They are freely present in the circulation. These proteins become activated in the presence of a pathogen, and when these proteins are activated, they activate other proteins. There are a series of proteins that are secreted by the liver. And so if one of these proteins is activated, it activates the others and so on and so on. And the products of the activations of these proteins lead to the protection of the body against foreign materials, against foreign particles. So the products of the activations of these proteins lead to the fight against pathogens, infectious agents. And the complement systems has three functions. It helps to facilitate the actions of phagocytosis by the body cells, and it also triggers inflammatory diseases, not leaving out the fact that the complement systems help in the destruction of the pathogen itself. And so we are going to be looking at this complement system, and we are focusing on the classical pathway of activation of the complement system. We have three pathways of activation of the complement system. We have the lectin pathway and the alternative pathway, which are being activated by the presence of a pathogen in the body, and we have the classical pathway, which is activated by the antibodies antigen complex from the specific immune system. And so we are going to be looking at the classical pathway of activation of the complement system. So I will be introducing you into a video that you are going to follow the details on how the classical pathway of activations occur. This pathway of activations occur, and obtaining the different complements that plays the functions of the complement system in the immune system. The complement system in general functions alongside with the innate and the specific immune system. So you watch the video, we shall see at the end of the video.
The complement system, we see it is driven through three pathways. It has got classical pathway, it has got alternative pathway, and lectin pathway. All the three pathways meet at C3 activation, and from here we get the common pathway. So let's discuss the classical pathway first. The classical pathway is antibody dependent pathway. Here in this diagram we can see we have got the microbe or pathogen in the circulation, and to launch the classical pathway of complement system, the antibody attaches with the microbe as shown in the diagram, thus giving us the antigen antibody complex. The antibody here is IgG or IgM antibody. Then after we see the complement protein starts to work in. First of all, C1 protein comes into action in the form of complex. Here we see C1 complex binds with the antibody bound to antigen. This C1 complex is the C1q-R2S2. When this C1 complex binds with the antibody, it gets activated and starts the cleavage of complement proteins. First of all, it cleaves C4 protein into C4a and C4b. Then it cleaves C2 into C2a and C2b. After that, the C4b and C2a combines together and forms an enzyme complex called the C4b2a. This is called the C3 convertase. So by its name, it works on C3 and cleaves it or converts it into C3a and C3b. The C3a helps in inflammation. whereas C3b combines with the C3 convertase. Thus we end up with a new enzyme with the following combination. We have now C4b, 2a, 3b, which is known by the name of C5 convertase. So in the next step, we see this C5 convertase acts upon C5 and converts into C5a and C5b. Now let's keep these things here and move towards the target membrane, which is the pathogen membrane. We see the C5b molecule recruits C6 and C7 proteins and gets into the membrane of pathogen as shown in the diagram. And we get the C5b67. Then this complex recruits another complement protein called the C8 protein. And we get the complex in the form of C5b678. And this complex has capability to polymerize C9 molecules into the pathogen membrane. So we see in this diagram that C5b678 initiates the polymerization of C9 molecules into the pathogen membrane. And eventually we get the poly C9 in the pathogen membrane. And this forms the pore in the membrane and is called the MAC or MAC, membrane attack complex. Through this MAC, there is influx of calcium ions and many other electrolytes into the target cell, which eventually brings about the bursting of cell through osmotic lysis. So this is how this complement system works with the classical pathway.
You are highly welcome back from the presentation. I hope you enjoyed the presentation on the classical pathway of activation of the complement system. That was great, right? And if you didn't understand it well, you should go through the video, the presentation once more so that you can really assimilate it and master it. It is really simple for you to understand. And if you are going through the presentation again the second time, put in your mind that you want to see how the various products of the complement systems which act as opsonins are obtained. We have opsonins like we have the C3b and the C4b. They are opsonins, those molecules that surrounds the pathogens for phagocyte to come and phagocyte them. And then you should also put in your mind that you want to really see how those molecules, those products, the products that triggers inflammatory reactions in the body, how they are obtained. We know about products that triggered inflammatory reactions like the C2A and the C5A. And again, you should also concentrate to see how finally the membrane attack complex is obtained. That complex, that complement, that complex that lead to the direct lysis of the cell membrane of pathogens. So that was it for the classical pathway of activation of the complement system. Continue to follow up the presentation carefully in order to assimilate it well. So we'll see in the next class. Ciao, ciao.